Good evening. In conflict zones across the globe, the calculus of war is changing. It's changing not just by the day, but by the hour. The decisions made in war rooms and the courage of soldiers on the ground are undeniable. But increasingly, the story of modern conflict is a story of technology. It's a story of steel circuits and high explosives. What we're seeing unfold right now, in real time on our screens and in the headlines, is a dramatic evolution in the tools of warfare. The conversations are no longer just about strategy, but about the specific hardware being deployed. From the battlefields making headlines today, these are the weapons everyone is talking about. We're going to take a closer look beyond the breaking news alerts to understand what these machines are, how they work, and why they've become so pivotal in the conflicts shaping our world. This isn't just about military hardware, it's about understanding the forces that are redrawing maps, rewriting alliances and impacting countless human lives. Tonight we're cutting through the noise. We'll examine the unmanned eyes in the sky that have become ubiquitous, the long-range artillery duels that define front lines, and the shoulder-fired rockets that can stop a tank in its tracks. This is a deep dive into the technology of today's wars, the very weapons that are at the center of international debate and the focus of desperate struggles for survival. Let's get started. If one single piece of technology has come to symbolize the shift in modern warfare, it is unquestionably the drone. These unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, have gone from the realm of science fiction and specialized military operations to a constant hovering presence over today's battlefields. They are the eyes, and sometimes the fist, of a 21st century army. You hear about them every single night on the news, but their true impact is something we need to unpack. They come in all shapes and sizes, from large, sophisticated reconnaissance platforms that look like traditional aircraft, like the Bayraktar TB2, to small, commercial-grade quadcopters you could buy online. These smaller drones have democratized aerial surveillance. A small infantry unit can now have a bird's-eye view of the battlefield, seeing over the next hill or around a street corner. A capability that just a decade ago would have required an air force or a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. This persistent stare from above changes everything. It changes how soldiers move, how they conceal themselves, and the psychological pressure they are constantly under. The knowledge that you could be watched at any moment from an unseen and often unheard enemy adds a layer of stress to combat that previous generations of soldiers never had to contend with. It removes the element of surprise and makes every movement a calculated risk. But the evolution didn't stop at surveillance. The drone has now become a weapon in its own right, and this is where the term loitering munition enters the vocabulary of war. Often called kamikaze or suicide drones, these are essentially flying bombs. They are designed to be launched into an area, circle or loiter above the battlefield while identifying a target, and then dive directly into it, detonating on impact. Think about the precision this allows. Instead of an artillery shell that follows a ballistic arc and lands in a general area, a loitering munition can be guided with pinpoint accuracy by an operator miles away, watching through the drone's own camera right up to the final second. It combines the persistence of an aircraft with the precision of a guided missile, but at a fraction of the cost. We've seen this play out dramatically with systems like the American-made Switchblade or the Iranian-designed Shahed drones. These aren't just anti-personnel weapons. Larger versions can carry warheads powerful enough to disable or destroy armored vehicles, artillery pieces, and critical infrastructure. They are a cost-effective way to strike high-value targets without risking a pilot or an expensive aircraft. The psychological impact is, again, immense. The distinctive buzzing sound of these drones has become a terrifying harbinger of an incoming attack. It's a sound that instills fear not just in soldiers on the front line but in civilians in cities far from the fighting. It's a constant, audible reminder that the threat is overhead, waiting for the right moment to strike. Furthermore, the drone war has become a battle of innovation. We're seeing a rapid, real-time arms race. One side develops a new type of drone and the other side rushes to develop the electronic warfare systems to jam it, the anti-aircraft guns to shoot it down, or their own, better drone to counter it. This cycle of adaptation is happening at a breathtaking pace, far faster than the development of traditional military hardware. The proliferation of this technology is also a major point of concern. While major military powers develop their own systems, the relative affordability of some drones means they are accessible to smaller nations and even non-state actors. This fundamentally alters the balance of power, giving groups with limited resources a potent and disruptive new capability on the battlefield. So when we talk about drones, we're not just talking about a single weapon, we're talking about a paradigm shift. We're talking about a new domain of warfare that is being written and rewritten every day. From simple reconnaissance to precision strikes, the unmanned revolution is here, and it's a central character in the story of every modern conflict. For all the talk of new, high-tech weaponry, there is a brutal, centuries-old truth that remains at the heart of conventional warfare. Artillery is still the king of battle. The thunderous roar of heavy guns and the devastating impact of rocket systems continue to shape the contours of the front line. In many of the world's current conflicts, these weapons are the primary cause of casualties and destruction. They are the instruments of attrition. When we talk about modern artillery, we're often talking about self-propelled howitzers. These are not the static, towed cannons of World War II. Systems like the German Panzerhaubitze 2000, the French Caesar, or the American M109 Paladin are essentially massive guns mounted on a tracked or wheeled armored chassis. This mobility is key to their survival and effectiveness in a modern war zone. The doctrine is often referred to as shoot and scoot. An artillery piece will drive to a pre-calculated firing position, unleash a salvo of shells in a matter of minutes, and then immediately relocate. They have to. In an age of drone surveillance and counter-battery radar, which can trace the arc of a shell back to its origin point, staying in one place for too long is a death sentence. The duel between artillery crews has become a high-stakes race against the clock. The ammunition they fire has also become incredibly sophisticated. It's not just a simple high-explosive shell anymore. We're seeing the widespread use of precision-guided munitions, like the M982 Excalibur shell. This is an artillery round that has its own GPS guidance and fins, allowing it to steer itself to a specific coordinate with incredible accuracy, sometimes within a few meters. This means fewer shells are needed to destroy a target, reducing collateral damage and logistical strain. Then, you have the rocket systems. While artillery fires single projectiles in a high arc, multiple launch rocket systems, or MLRS, unleash a terrifying volley of rockets in a very short period. Soviet-era systems like the BM-21 Grad are infamous for their ability to saturate a wide area with explosives, a tactic designed for shock and suppression rather than precision. However, the conversation in recent conflicts has been dominated by a much more advanced system, the M142 High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, or HIMARS. This American-made system has proven to be a game-changer. It's a rocket launcher mounted on a truck, making it extremely mobile and hard to target. But its true strength lies in the precision of the rockets it fires. The GMLRS, or Guided Multiple Launch Rocket System, rockets fired by HIMARS are GPS-guided. Each rocket can be aimed at a specific target up to 80 kilometers away or more. This isn't an area saturation weapon like the Grad, it's a long-range surgical tool. We have seen them used to strike command posts, ammunition depots, and bridges deep behind enemy lines. The strategic impact of a system like HIMARS is profound. It forces an adversary to change their entire logistical setup. They can no longer safely stockpile ammunition or concentrate forces near the front lines. They have to disperse their assets, making their operations less efficient and more complicated. It's a weapon that doesn't just destroy targets, it disrupts and degrades an enemy's entire ability to wage war. The duel between these systems is a central feature of the wars making headlines. One side uses long-range rockets to cripple logistics, while the other uses its own artillery and drones to hunt for the launchers. It's a deadly game of hide-and-seek played out over hundreds of square miles, with the fate of entire campaigns hanging in the balance. So while drones may represent the new face of war, the raw, destructive power of artillery and rocket systems remains an undeniable and decisive factor. They are the heavy hammers that break fortifications, suppress enemy movements, and dictate the brutal arithmetic of the battlefield. The ancient god of war, it seems, still speaks in thunder. Amidst the thunder of artillery and the buzz of drones, the reality of war for the individual soldier often comes down to the weapon in their hands. The modern service rifle, the machine gun, the sniper system, these are the intimate tools of conflict. While they may not have the strategic, headline-grabbing impact of a long-range missile, they are fundamental to every firefight, every patrol, and every defensive stand. The era of the Cold War left a lasting legacy on small arms. The AK-47 and its many modern variants like the AK-74M or the AK-12 remain one of the most ubiquitous weapon platforms in the world. Known for its ruggedness, reliability, and ease of use, it is the rifle of choice for dozens of armies and insurgent groups. Its silhouette is instantly recognizable and synonymous with conflict across the globe. On the other side, you have the Western design philosophy, epitomized by the AR-15 platform, which includes the M4 and M16 rifles, used by the United States and its allies. These rifles are often prized for their modularity, ergonomics, and accuracy. The widespread use of Picatinny rails allows a soldier to customize their weapon with a vast array of optics, lights, lasers, and grips, tailoring the rifle to their specific mission. This modularity is a key theme in modern small arms. A soldier's rifle is no longer just a rifle. With an advanced optic like an ACOG or a red dot sight, it becomes a much more precise instrument. With a night vision or thermal scope, it allows the soldier to own the night. Add a grenade launcher and it provides an immediate source of explosive firepower. This turns the individual rifleman into a versatile and highly capable weapon system. Beyond the standard issue rifle, we see the critical role of support weapons. The squad machine gun, like the M249 SAW or the Russian PKM, provides the volume of fire necessary to suppress an enemy, allowing riflemen to maneuver. These weapons are the bedrock of small unit tactics, creating the base of fire that is essential for both attack and defense. Their sustained, chattering roar is one of the most definitive sounds of a firefight. Then there is the specialized world of the sniper. Modern sniper systems are feats of engineering. Rifles like the Barrett M82, firing the powerful .50 BMG round, are not just anti-personnel weapons. They are anti-material rifles, capable of destroying engine blocks, radar equipment, and other critical targets from well over a mile away. The skill of the sniper, combined with this technology, can have an outsized psychological and tactical effect. At the same time, we're seeing the development and deployment of new calibers and weapon systems. There's a constant debate about the ideal intermediate cartridge, with some forces experimenting with rounds designed to offer better performance at longer ranges than the standard 5.56mm or 5.45mm rounds. This is a direct response to the lessons learned in conflicts where engagements are happening at greater distances. Ammunition technology itself is advancing. We're talking about rounds with better ballistics, improved terminal performance, and even specialized armor-piercing capabilities to defeat modern body armor. The unseen science behind the bullet is just as important as the rifle that fires it. It's a constant, incremental arms race playing out at the smallest scale. The soldier's loadout has also become heavier and more complex. The proliferation of body armor, communications equipment, and optics means that the individual soldier is carrying more weight than ever before. This has a direct impact on the design of their weapons, with a constant push for lighter materials and more ergonomic designs to reduce fatigue and increase combat effectiveness. Ultimately, these small arms are the final arbiter. When front lines stabilize and the fighting becomes a close-quarters affair in trenches, forests, or urban ruins, it is the skill of the soldier and the reliability of their rifle that makes the difference. They are the personal, tangible reality of war, and their design and use tell us a great deal about the nature of the conflicts they are fought in. For over a century, the tank has been the ultimate symbol of land power. A rolling fortress of steel and firepower, its presence on the battlefield can be decisive. Yet in every recent conflict, a fierce debate erupts. Is the tank obsolete, or is it more essential than ever? The truth, as we're seeing it play out, is complicated. The age of the tank is not over, but its role is being violently redefined. The main battle tanks making headlines are the products of decades of Cold War and post-Cold War development. You have the Western heavyweights, the German Leopard 2, the American M1 Abrams, and the British Challenger 2. These tanks are renowned for their sophisticated fire control systems, powerful guns, and most importantly, their advanced composite armor and high crew survivability. On the other side, you have the lineage of Soviet and Russian tank design, culminating in the T-90 and its variants, as well as modernized versions of the older T-72. These tanks traditionally prioritize a lower profile, lighter weight, and an auto-loader for their main gun, which reduces the crew size to 3. They are produced in vast numbers and represent a different philosophy of armored warfare. When these machines meet in combat, it becomes a test of competing designs. But the tank-on-tank duels of the past are becoming rarer. The modern battlefield is a far more lethal environment for a tank. The primary threats often don't come from another tank, but from above and from the flanks, from weapons we'll discuss later. This has led to a visible evolution in tank design. Even on the battlefield itself, we're seeing tanks adorned with cope cages, makeshift slatted armor on top of the turret designed to prematurely detonate drones or top-attack munitions. We're seeing them covered in bricks of explosive reactive armor, or ERA, which explodes outward to disrupt an incoming projectile. The tank is literally adapting its skin to survive. The role of tanks in offensive operations remains critical. They are the tip of the spear in any major armored push. Their ability to combine firepower, protection, and mobility is still unmatched for breaking through fortified enemy lines. A column of tanks advancing across open ground is a terrifying and often unstoppable sight for infantry who lack the proper tools to counter them. However, their use in urban environments is fraught with peril. Cities are a tank's nightmare. The limited fields of fire, the multi-story buildings that provide ambush positions, and the ease of concealment for anti-tank teams turn streets into death traps. We've seen devastating losses of armored vehicles in urban assaults, which has forced a major rethinking of combined arms tactics. This is where other armored vehicles become essential. Infantry fighting vehicles, or IFVs, like the American Bradley or the German Marder, are designed to work in tandem with tanks. They carry infantry squads into battle while providing fire support with their autocannons and anti-tank missiles. They are the crucial link that protects the tanks from infantry, and vice versa. The debate over supplying tanks like the Leopard 2 or Abrams to conflict zones highlights their strategic importance. These aren't just weapons, they are complex systems that require immense logistical support, fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and extensive training for their crews and maintainers. The decision to send tanks is a massive political and military commitment. So, is the tank obsolete? The answer we're seeing on the ground is a clear no, but it can no longer operate as an invincible behemoth. It must be part of a combined arms team integrated with infantry, artillery, air defense, and electronic warfare. Its survival depends on this network of support. The Iron Fist is still powerful, but it must be guided by a very modern and very careful hand. If tanks and aircraft represent the giants of the modern battlefield, then the headlines of today's wars are filled with the stories of the giant slayers. These are the relatively small, often shoulder-fired, guided missiles that have allowed a single soldier or a small team to destroy a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. They have, in many ways, leveled the playing field and become icons of resistance. The most famous of these is undoubtedly the American-made FGM-148 Javelin. The Javelin is more than just a rocket, it's a sophisticated fire-and-forget missile system. An operator uses the advanced thermal sight to lock onto a target, fires the missile, and can immediately take cover. The missile itself flies up into the air and then plunges down onto its target. This is called a top attack profile. Why is that so important? Because the top armor of a tank is almost always its thinnest and most vulnerable point. The Javelin is specifically designed to exploit this weakness, making it incredibly lethal even against the most heavily armored tanks. Its imagery, a plume of smoke followed by a destroyed tank, has become a powerful symbol of modern asymmetric warfare. Alongside the Javelin, you have systems like the NLAW, or Next Generation Light Anti-Tank Weapon. This is a British-Swedish system that is simpler and lighter than the Javelin. It uses a system called predicted line of sight. The gunner tracks the target for a few seconds before firing, and the missile then flies to the predicted impact point. It also has a top attack capability, making it another deadly threat to armor. The proliferation of these weapons has forced a fundamental change in armored tactics. Tank columns can no longer advance with impunity. They have to be preceded by infantry to clear out potential anti-tank teams hiding in tree lines, ditches, or buildings. The threat is pervasive, and it means that every patch of woods, every window, is a potential source of lethal danger for an armored crew. A similar story has unfolded in the air. The skies are contested not just by fighter jets, but by man-portable air defense systems, or man-pads. The American FIM-92 Stinger is the most legendary of these. It's a shoulder-fired, infrared homing missile that allows a soldier on the ground to shoot down low-flying aircraft like helicopters and attack jets. The presence of Stinger missiles or similar systems like the Russian Igla or the Polish Piorun effectively denies an enemy air force freedom of action at low altitudes. It forces pilots to fly higher, which makes them less effective at supporting ground troops and more vulnerable to larger radar-guided surface-to-air missile systems. It creates a no-fly zone bubble around infantry units. Beyond the shoulder-fired systems, we see the critical role of larger, more complex air defense networks. Systems like the American Patriot or the Russian S-300 and S-400 are designed to counter higher and faster threats, including ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and high-altitude aircraft. They are strategic assets, protecting entire cities and critical infrastructure. The ongoing battle between these air defense systems and incoming missiles and drones is a constant high-tech duel. It's a game of radars, jammers, and interceptors. Every news report of a missile being shot down is a victory for one of these systems. Their success or failure has a direct impact on the safety of civilians and the ability of a nation to function during a conflict. These defensive weapons, the Javelins, the Stingers, the Patriots, may not have the offensive punch of a tank or a bomber, but their strategic impact is immense. They are weapons of denial. They deny the enemy the use of their most powerful assets. They empower the defender, raise the cost of an attack astronomically, and have become some of the most talked about and decisive pieces of hardware in modern warfare. Tonight, we've looked at the steel, the silicon, and the software at the heart of modern war. From the individual soldier's rifle to the complex air defense networks protecting entire cities, the technology is evolving at a breathtaking speed. The drone that sees everything, the rocket that strikes from unseen distances, the missile that can slay a giant. These are no longer abstract concepts. They are the daily, brutal reality in conflicts around the world. But looking at this hardware reveals a deeper truth. These weapons don't just define today's wars. They reshape how conflicts are fought and how the world reacts. They change the calculus of power, empowering smaller forces to resist larger ones. They create new moral and ethical dilemmas, and they bring the reality of the front line to the entire world through the very cameras mounted on the weapons themselves, forcing us all to bear witness. Understanding these tools is about more than just military strategy. It's about understanding the forces shaping the 21st century. The lessons learned in the mud and rubble of today's battlefields will dictate the technology of tomorrow's armies and, ultimately, the future of global security. The conversation about these weapons is a conversation about the world we live in now, and the one we are building for the future. Thanks for watching.